Have you ever had a friend who has helped you realize something about yourself that you didn't realize about yourself before? This could cover a whole wide range of topics. It could be as simple as they helped you realize you had food in your face. You had a big old piece of lettuce in your teeth. Maybe they helped you realize that your zipper was down. Maybe they helped you realize that you are actually really good at this thing that you didn't think you were really good at. Or maybe they helped you realize you're really not good at that thing that you think you are good at. Maybe you've had this friend who has just helped you learn something new that has helped change the way you think about the world that you live in. Friends are a really great thing to have. Now, we think about friends, and sometimes the perception that we have of friends is that friends are the people who we get along best with, who want to make us happy the most, and certainly friends have that kind of dynamic to them. But what we're looking at in this series is that friendship is actually far more complex than we sometimes make it. Because the friends that we want to have when things go poorly, those are often our greatest friends. Those are often the people that we look at and we go, those are the people I want around me. Those are the people that I want to have influence over my life. These are the most important people, right? So we're just going to use a little illustration here tonight. I need a volunteer. I need someone to, Ben, come here. Ben, I'm just going to, Ben, I'm gonna have you stand right in the middle there, right in the middle. Yeah, perfect. That's fantastic. So, right, a friend. Oh, I gotta weave this whole thing through. So a friend is someone that, right, when life, a good friend, a friend that we are using in terms of a lifeline, right, is a friend that when you're sinking, when life is difficult, they throw a lifeline. You don't have to put it around your head. You just gotta catch it, right? It's just. You can put it around you if you want, but actually don't do that because this is going to take a long time. So they're the ones who tosses you a lifeline and says, listen, when life is hard, I'm here for you. Right? Now, but here's the thing. Ben, I'm going to have you put this on your face as a blindfold. It is a shirt, but it's going to be a blindfold. Sure, that works. Now, I'm going to tell a hypothetical story here. Let's say, I want you to imagine you have a really, really good friend, like a person you say, this is a close friend. This is a person that knows you better than anybody else. This may be someone that you grew up with and basically your family, because your families have been like friends for so long. Maybe this is someone you've gone to church with for a really long time. This is the person who knows you better than anyone else. And not only do they know you better than anyone else, they also know who you want to become. Like they know you that well, that they know what you are going after, what you care about, not just like what job you want to have, but what kind of person you want to become. Does that make sense? So like this is someone you know super well. So we're going to go through some imaginary scenarios here where let's just say, you are at school, right? School just started. I'm sorry that we keep talking about it, but it's the reality for the next 9 months. So let's just dig in, right? Let's just say you're at school, and I know none of you would do this, so this is hypothetical, if you will, but let's imagine that, it's one of those situations where it doesn't normally happen this way, but you got to get this assignment done, and you know this person who already did it, and so you just kind of take what they did, and you got to get it done before class, and so you're copying their work, right? You just got to get it done. They already did it, so you're just going to copy it down. Right? And your friend is like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Like, what are you doing? That's not okay. And they throw you a lifeline, but you miss it, right? Or let's say, social media. How many of you like social media? You shouldn't. It's the devil. But let's say we have it and we use it and we do something on there that we're a follower of Jesus. We want to reflect Jesus, but what we posted didn't really do that. It didn't reflect it. It called someone out, or it was rude, or it was just kind of like it didn't match up with who Jesus says we should be. And your friend notices it, and they send you a text, and they say, "Hey, what's that about?" And you're like, "Whatever, don't worry about it," right? Like it's not a big deal. Like it's not. Don't worry about it. It's just a post, right? It doesn't matter. Or there's another situation where there's someone who, man, they're going through something tough, and you haven't been really there for them. Like you kind of brushing them off. You're even like going to the point where you're talking bad about them. You're gossiping about them. You're just tearing this person down, and this person's trying to hold you accountable. And so they try and throw you a lifeline, but you miss it because here's the thing. Thanks, Ben. You can take that off. See, good job, Ben. You didn't catch it, but that's all right. Good job, Ben. Right, so this friend is consistently trying to help you out. They're trying to call things out in your life that say, hey, this isn't who you want to be. This isn't the best version of you. They're trying to throw you a lifeline, but see, the problem is we have blind spots. We have blind spots that keep us from seeing some of these places in our life where we desperately need someone to come alongside us and call out these behaviors and say, hey, you're missing it. Not that you're a bad person, but I know who you want to become, and that's not what this is helping you become. And so I want to help you. I want to walk alongside you. You see, there's these places in our lives where we need a friend. We need someone to come alongside us. There's 3 particular areas that I want to look at tonight. One is when you're drifting, right? This is not that you're a terrible person, but sometimes you're just going through life. And if we look at like this is where we're trying to go, all it takes is to be a degree or 2 off. And to continue through life a degree or 2 off, and before you know it, you are nowhere close, right? Drifting is often the most dangerous because it's so subtle, and we don't necessarily see it. And so we need friends who help us recognize that and help us get back in line, help us get back to where we need to be, where we want to be. Then we have times where we're just distracted. Right? This is where we want to go, but squirrel, right? We were just like, there's something that has happened. So you come home, this is like the classic example, right? But you come home from camp, and you're like, yes, I'm ready. And then by the time school starts, you're like, oh, I have like 4 AP classes, or I have this going on. Now my life has been devoted to school, and what you had really good intentions for at the end of camp, you've just become distracted from them. And so you have these people, hopefully, these friends that help you realize, hey, I think you're distracted. Remember this? Remember what you told me? Remember what you're going after? Let me help you get back there. And then there's times where we are just straight up drowning, where we are just completely overwhelmed. Life is hard. Life happens in waves at times, and you just feel like you can't keep your head above water. But what's tricky about this one is that sometimes you're the last person to know that you are drowning. That you have become so accustomed to the chaos that you need someone to say, you need to slow down. You need help. You desperately need a lifeline. And so tonight, what we're going to look at is this is kind of a 2-way street. For some of us, we are desperately in need of a lifeline. We are desperately in need of someone who can help us because we are drifting, we are distracted, or we are just straight up drowning. But for some of us, tonight is going to be a challenge for you to be a lifeline to somebody else. That friendship needs to be expanded beyond just, oh, I say the things that you want me to say. Or this is just me saying, stuff that isn't actually helpful to you. That's not friendship. At times, that's just enabling that person to continue to be distracted, drifting, or drowning. And so what our goal for this series is to look at Jesus, because we all have terrible examples of friends. Like right off the bat, if I could say, think of the worst friend you have like 5 of those people. We're not trying to be like those people. You see, what we're trying to be is we're trying to be like Jesus. And so there's going to be times where we need to understand who Jesus is and what he has done for us as a lifeline. And then there's times where we need to understand, so if I'm a follower of Jesus, how do I now live my life in a way where I am a lifeline to somebody else? And so last week we looked at a story of Jesus helping someone just have the opportunity to be real, where they could be who they are. And Jesus didn't judge them. Jesus didn't shame them. He gave them that space. Tonight, the main point that we're looking at is godly friends help you grow. And so tonight we're going to look at a story where Jesus does something that we would consider a move of a friend, where he helps someone grow in a way that they didn't see that they needed to. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Luke chapter 10. If you don't, it'll be up on the screen behind me. But we're going to look at a story where Jesus helps someone out who didn't necessarily know that they needed it. So this is Luke chapter 10. We're going to look at verses 38 through 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And she came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Now, this is an interesting story because we have to look at it not from our 21st century, everybody's equal type of viewpoint. Because if we look at it that way, this story is really not that remarkable. It's what you would expect, right? Of course she's upset, whatever. But here's what's interesting about this story. Now, Jesus had 12 disciples, but he had other people who followed him. Mary and Martha were 2 of these people. And so if we wanted to, we could say that they were technically disciples, because that's really what a disciple was. It was someone who followed someone, this teacher, this rabbi. And so Mary and Martha are following Jesus. They know enough about Jesus to open up their home to him, right? And Martha's going to throw a party. But you see, Jesus is a big deal. So to invite Jesus over was to basically invite the whole town over. And so you can understand the stress that Martha is feeling. She is opening up her home to a bunch of people, and she wants to make sure it's good. So she's cleaning, she's cooking, she's preparing things, and her lazy sister is just sitting down listening to Jesus teach. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you were cleaning, your sibling wasn't, and it ticked you off? Yeah, right? So you understand what Martha is feeling. You understand the whole town has come over. And her sister is just sitting there, listening to Jesus. So of course it makes sense that she would go to Jesus and be like, "Excuse me, Jesus, can you please correct my sister? She is way out of line. She is not helping me at all." And Jesus does something unexpected for Martha, right? Martha thinks she's totally in the right. Martha thinks she has done nothing wrong. Jesus is going to come back her up, and Jesus flips the tables on her. And he's like, "Actually, Martha, your sister's doing the best thing that she can do." What? One, we have that whole layer that we just unpacked. But secondly, it was not culturally okay for a woman to sit at the feet of a rabbi. It was not okay for a woman to take on the role of a student. But that's what Mary did. She was like, I'm a follower of Jesus. I want to not just know the teachings of this man, I want to know how he lives. I want to know what it's like to be a follower of his. I want to become like him. And Jesus says that's exactly what she should be doing. Now, Jesus isn't mad at Martha. Jesus doesn't shame her. Jesus isn't like, you're dumb. She's doing it right. You should be more like her. But he does offer an invitation. He throws her a lifeline. He says there's a different way to approach all of this, right? The culture is going to tell you, like, you have to go through the hustle and bustle. She kind of loses. She becomes distracted. She knows who Jesus is. She knows what he is offering. But she's missed an opportunity to do something better. And I will say this over and over again because I think it's going to be very true for us time and time again, that there's going to be opportunities in life where a good thing will present itself. But there will also be times where there will be something better that you will only get at the expense of giving up something good. Now, this is one of the dumb things about school that started happening more and more recently, is they'll give you questions, and there's a right answer, and then there's a better answer. What the heck? No, there's 3 that aren't true, and there's one. No, there's sometimes going to be, there's a right answer, but there's a better answer. And so it's not bad that Martha was trying to make this a really good party, but it wasn't the best answer. And so Jesus shows up, and he offers her this lifeline. I can't imagine that this was a comfortable conversation to listen to. One, it's probably not very comfortable for Martha. Like, she's like, comes out guns blazing on her sister, putting her on blast, and then Jesus is like, actually, you are the one who's not doing the right thing. And can you imagine like being someone who's listening, like, ooh, that's awkward. But just because it was awkward, Jesus didn't shy away from it. Just because it was uncomfortable didn't mean that Jesus wasn't going to have that conversation. And I think this is where it's important for us to understand there are going to be times where people need to have uncomfortable conversations with us, and we need to listen to them. And there's going to be times where, as a friend, you need to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone, even though that is probably the last thing that you want to do. Because if we're going to be a lifeline to someone, we have to be willing to go into these situations where we say, listen, I know who you want to become. I know that there's a better version of you than this. And so when the opportunity arises, when you are distracted, when you are drifting, when you are drowning, I'm going to help you. And sometimes that means it's going to be a hard conversation. And so Jesus gently says, it's okay. You can sit down. Let's talk. Don't get so caught up. She was distracted. Now, this is something that isn't just this happened back then. This is something that we are offered. Jesus does the same thing for us. Last week we looked at a verse in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, and simply the main first line talks about how we should be imitators of God. We should try to live like him. And so we take these examples that we have of Jesus and we go, okay, so what does this mean for me? Jesus shows up for Martha. He's a lifeline to her. So what does this mean for me? How do I imitate God? Think about how often we try to imitate people, right? Like, that's pretty much all social media is an imitation of something or someone. We're trying to always keep up in some way, and the Bible constantly says, well, let's see if maybe it's more important to be imitators of God, to pursue what he is up to and what he is after. And so, just like Jesus gave Martha a chance to change and to grow, we can have that mindset. How do I let my friends help me change and grow? And in turn, how do I help them change and grow. But before we go too far, like I think it's so important for us to remember, the only reason that we can do this, the only way that we can like really understand what it means to be a lifeline is to understand that Jesus was a lifeline to us first. This is foundational, and we talked about this last week. It's foundational for us to understand that we weren't like drifting or distracted, like we were straight up drowning. We had no hope. There was nothing that we could do to save ourselves, but Jesus throws us this lifeline. Now, it's a much bigger lifeline than just like calling someone out. He was like, you know what, the only way to make this right, because Adam and Eve were like, we're going to do things our own way. We're going to choose for ourselves what it means to do something that is right or something that is wrong. Like, we're going to decide for ourselves. We know better than God. And we go, man, Adam and Eve are so dumb. But the problem is we are just as dumb because we do the same thing. All the time we're deciding, I know better. This will be different for me. And we make these choices that at times get us into really, really bad spots. And we can't do anything about it. But the amazing thing about this story, this biblical story, is that Jesus is like, yeah, you have no shot, but I want to do something about it. I want to throw you a lifeline. And I'm not just going to like offer you some nice words. I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to go to the cross. I'm going to die the most brutal death possible at this time in history. I'm going to do all of that for you. I'm going to die the death that you should die. I'm going to live the life that you should live because I love you. And I want you to experience life the way it was always intended to be. I want you to experience the world the way that I wanted it to be. I want our relationship to be the way it was supposed to be. And so I'm going to throw you this lifeline, right? So we imitate this self-sacrificial way of being a friend, of loving people. And there's times where it's so difficult to understand what that means, what that will require of us. But here's the thing. This lifeline that Jesus gave us, we have to understand that if we're going to take this seriously, if like we listen to what it says, some of us are still drowning. Like if you have not made that decision, if you have not said, you know what, I'm going to put my faith and my trust in Jesus, the Bible talks about the fact that you are still drowning. The lifeline is there. Like you're in the water and it's right there. You got to take it though. It can't just be something that you go, well, that's nice. Because it's not going to help you. This is not, you can't just look at it. It's something that you have to receive. And so the Bible says, take it. You don't have to do anything crazy to take it. You don't have to jump through all these crazy hoops. Ironically, this is a hoop. You don't have to jump through the hoop. But you do have to take it. You do have to receive this gift. You just have to say, I need to be saved. And Jesus, I believe that you are the person who saves. So I'm going to put my faith and my trust in you. And so some of you have not done that. And so the challenge tonight is take a hold of the lifeline. Take hold of this gift that you have been given. But many of us have taken hold of that. But we haven't necessarily decided we're all in. We're like, yeah, I like this idea of being saved, but when I get in the boat, things got to be different. I'm not really sure I want things to be different. And so I'm kind of hanging out in the water, and I'm like, this is nice, but I don't know if I really want to go all in. There hasn't been a transformation in our lives that says, you know what, I'm gonna take this whole idea of what it means to follow Jesus. I'm going to let it impact every area of my life. I'm going to let my friendships be seen through the lens of how Jesus loves people. And so I'm going to take this understanding of who Jesus is and what he's asking for me. Like, we say, like, Jesus is Lord. That means that Jesus is in charge of every area of my life. That's what a Lord is. So if you're not sure if that's true, be careful what you're saying. Because when I say Jesus is the Lord of my life, I'm saying, Jesus, I'm going to let you have every single area of my life. I'm going to set this as my foundation. I'm going to be all in, and then I'm going to let you change the kind of friend that I am. I'm going to let you change the way that I see people. And so instead of just making friendship about me, instead of just making it about my happiness and expecting my friends to always make me happy and expecting it to go a certain way, and if someone says something bad about me, like if they call me on something, then we're going to fight because how dare they say something like that, right? Like if that is the kind of view of friendship we have, that is not seen through the lens of Jesus, because Jesus says, you know what? A real friend throws you a lifeline when you need it. They call you on your crap. And you say, you know what? Ultimately, my goal in life is to be like Jesus, and so I'm going to let you call me on it. I'm going to let you help me when I'm drifting, or distracted, or just straight up drowning. You see, this gospel of Jesus changes every area of our life, and we go, you know what? I think based on what I see, based on what I know, my pursuit of Jesus is this constant growth. And I need friends who are going to help me do that. And so here's how I want us to close out tonight. On your chair, there was a piece of paper. And I just realized you need to have two pieces of paper, so go me. So take note of what needs to happen right now. And you can use, or you can text. So this is something that you can write down or you can text, so if you're a texter. But here's what we're going to do. Right, there's this level of our lives where we talked about it last week. One of the scariest things about really pursuing friendship is that these kind of friendships, man, people know your mess. People know what is happening in your life, and you're asking them to walk into the mess and walk with you through the mess, and that's scary. The vulnerability that it takes to have these kind of friendships is crucial to actually having friendships that are going to help you grow. And so tonight, what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to be honest about your need for other people. I'm asking you to be honest about these people that you need in your life who are going to help call out something better in you, who are going to help you grow. And so we're going to just simply call this a deep water pass. Now, this is an opportunity. I want you to think of one adult and one friend, one peer, someone your age. And I want you to write them a note that simply has the gist of, man, I am going to give you permission to call me out. When you see me going a certain direction that you know I don't want to go, call me on it. I'm giving you permission. And that's really difficult. And you may not be quite ready for it yet. But I want you to begin thinking about these people. And the tricky thing is, the challenge is, and I know this because I've experienced it, is that sometimes you have no idea who those people are. Sometimes life is really lonely and you're like, I really want that, but I have no idea who that person could even be. And so tonight, it may simply begin with a prayer of, God, would you bring these people into my life? I'm drifting, I'm distracted, I'm drowning, and I feel like I have no one. Because sometimes, yeah, we know God is there, but sometimes we need a physical person. And I get that. I've been there. And I know how frustrating it can be. And so wherever you're at, maybe tonight you start with, God, would you bring these people into my life? Would you bring people into my life that I trust? Maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're like, I've been just going through the motions, and I need people who can call me on my stuff. I need to take that next step and say, all right, I'm letting you in. I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm not going to push you away. I'm going to let you in. I'm going to let you call me on stuff. Because ultimately, this is where I want to go. I want to grow, and I need you as friends to help me in that. And maybe you're like, I've got those people. I'm kind of set. And so maybe the challenge for you is, am I doing that for other people? Am I making myself available for other people so that they know I'm with them in the mess? I'm with them in the midst of it all, and I want them to grow. I want to help them get to where they want to go. So spend some time thinking about this and praying about this and asking God, what's my next step tonight? Because I know there's a step. I know it's got to be something. So what is it? Would you pray with me? Jesus, would you help us to see how much more full our life could be if we had friendships that went past just the superficial interests, the superficial things that's really easy to sometimes stay in. God, would we see that there's so much more that you have for us when we let people in, when we decide that we're going to use our friendships strategically to help us grow. Not that everybody fills that role, but God, there's certain people that we need. And so would you just continue to make us aware of who those people are, the places where you want us to grow, the places you want us to take more steps towards you. But I thank you that you made a way for us, that we get to do this because of who you are and your love for us and the fact that you were willing to go to the greatest lengths to throw us a lifeline, to make the relationship between you and us right again. Not because of anything that we did, not because of who we are, but because of who you are. So would you help us to see through that lens, that self-sacrificial love that pours out into the lives of other people. We love you and we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.